Most people give up just when they're about to achieve success. They quit on the 1 yard line. They give up at the last minute of the game, 1 foot from a winning touchdown. Persistence is probably the single most common quality of high achievers that just simply refuse to give up. The longer you hang in there, the greater the chance that something will happen in your favour. I always say every dog has their day. You just need to keep going. No matter how hard it seems, the longer you persist, the more likely you are to succeed. So it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to have to persist in the face of obstacles, often unseen obstacles, and no amount of planning and foresight could have predicted these. Coronavirus. Sometimes you'll encounter what seems to be the overwhelming odds, and sometimes the universe will test your commitment to that goal you're pursuing. The going may be hard, requiring you to refuse to give up while you learn new lessons, develop new parts of yourself, and make difficult decisions. History has always demonstrated that the most noticeable winners usually encounter heartbreaking obstacles before they've even triumphed. They've won because they refused to become discouraged by their defeats. There can be no victory without a fight or a struggle. Hugo Pantero, the co-founder and former CEO of XM Satellite Radio, is an example of an amazing commitment and perseverance in the corporate sector. After 2 years of recruiting investors, ranging from General Motors to Hughes Electronics to DirecTV and Clear Channel Communications, that's the person who puts all the billboards up around the area, Pantero's dream of becoming the world's largest subscription radio service nearly collapsed at the last minute when investors threatened to back out if the acceptable deal wasn't struck by midnight, June 6, 2001. After exhausting negotiations and shuttle diplomacy, Pantero and his chairman of the board, Gary Parsons, secured commitments of $225 million just minutes before the deadline. Less than a year later, the launch of XM's 200 million satellite were aborted just 11 seconds before liftoff, when an engineer misread the message on his computer screen, forcing the company to wait another 2 months for the available launch date again. Still, Pantero persevered, and finally scheduled the debut of XM Radio's 101 channels of programming for September the 12th, 2001. But when terrorists attacked the World Trade Center the morning of the 11th, just a day prior to the scheduled debut, he was forced to cancel the satellite's launch party and pull XM's inaugural TV and ad featuring a rap star rocketing past a group of towering skyscrapers. His team urged him to postpone the company's launch for another year, yet in the end, he held fast to his dream and debuted the service just 2 weeks later. Today, through all the setbacks and delays, most of which make our own daily difficulties pale by comparison, the merged Sirius XM dominates the satellite radio business with more than 23 million subscribers, paying every single month to enjoy 72 channels of music, plus 93 channels of premier sports, talk, comedy, children's entertainment and programming, and traffic and weather information. Remember, no is just a word on the path to success. Don't give up too soon. Not even if well-meaning parents, relatives, friends and colleagues tell you to get a real job. Your dreams are your real job. When Debbie decided to pursue her dream career of becoming a writer, she rented a typewriter and put it on the kitchen table and began to type each morning after the kids went off to school. And when the kids came home, she moved the typewriter to make dip for dinner. When they went to bed, she moved it back and typed some more. For 2.5 years, Debbie followed this routine. Supermum had become a struggling writer, and she was loving every minute of it. One night, however, her husband, Wayne, sat her down and said, "Honey, I'm sorry, you're not bringing in any income at all. We can't do this anymore. We just can't survive on just what I make." That night, her heart broken and her mind too busy to let her sleep, she stared at the ceiling in their darkened bedroom. Debbie knew, with all her responsibilities of keeping up a house and taking on 4 kids to the sports, the church, the scouts, that working 40 hours a week would leave her no time to write. Sensing her despair, her husband woke up and asked, "What's wrong?" "I really think I could have made a writer. I really do." Wayne was silent for a long time, then sat up, turned on the light and said, "All right, honey, go for it." So Debbie returned to her dream and her typewriter on the kitchen table, pounding out page after page for another 2.5 years. Her family went on without vacations, penny pinching, and wore hand-me-downs as well to survive. But the sacrifice and persistence finally paid off. After 5 years of struggle, Debbie sold her first book, and then another, and then another, until today, finally, Debbie has published more than 150 books, many of which become New York Times bestsellers, and 4 of which have been made for television movies. Over 170 million copies of her books are in print, and she has millions of loyal fans. And Wayne? Well, all that sacrifice and support for his wife paid off so handsomely. He got to retire at 50-year-old and now spends his time building an aeroplane in the basement of their 7,000 square foot mansion. Debbie's kids got a gift far more important than a few summer camps. As adults, they realise what Debbie has given to them, and far more important, and the permission and encouragement to pursue their own dreams as well. And what could you accomplish if you were to follow your heart and practice this much daily discipline and never give up? And I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning, Julie and Audrey.